of anything they have to offer me, right? It's like, get over yourself, Mark. You've got to.
I believe if we could be indivisible, we would be indestructible. And
hype after this. I don't mean to ask you to put you on the spot to say, tell us what's going to happen in the future, but tell us what's going to happen in the future.
Good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Keep Leading Live. I'm your host, Eddie Turner. I work with leaders to accelerate performance and drive impact through the power of executive coaching, masterful facilitation, and professional keynote speeches. The Keep Leading podcast is dedicated to leadership development and insights. So I'm always looking for great thought leaders who have insights in these areas to add. And boy, am I excited about the thought leader I have today, a repeat guest on Keep Leading. So before we begin and I introduce my guest for today, I'm going to encourage you to hit the share button on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, where we're streaming and broadcasting. If you are interested in what we're saying and something resonates, go ahead and type a response to us. If I see it, I'll certainly highlight it. If you have a question, ask a question of my guest today. And if you're not already following her, one of the 30,000 people following her on LinkedIn, hit that follow button, connect with her, and follow her insights. Leading by mentoring is our topic for today. And leading by mentoring is a fantastic way to develop future leaders in your organization. Research consistently demonstrates myriads of benefits associated with mentoring. Despite this, many individuals remain unaware of the advantages of mentoring, and the percentage of people actively engaged in mentoring remains low. In her new book, The Financial Times, it's a series. It's entitled Mentoring. Dr. Ruth Gotian and her co-author seek to bridge the gap by providing readers with practical tools and strategies to understand, establish, and sustain effective mentoring relationships. So who is Dr. Ruth Gotian? Well, in addition to being one of the foremost thought leaders in this space and one of my good friends, she is the Chief Learning Officer for Weill Cornell. She's a globally recognized expert on mentoring and leadership development, and she's focused on people who have great skills and are peak performers, such as Nobel Prize winners, astronauts, Olympic athletes, NBA champions, and so many more. Those are the people she featured in her first international bestseller, The Success Factor. And today she's here to talk to us about her latest bestseller in the making. So welcome, Dr. Ruth Gotian.
Hello, Eddie. How are you?
I am well. Anytime I get a chance to spend some time with you, I'm doing splendid.
I am so excited because we didn't get to hang out since November when we were in London for Thinkers 50 Gala, which was incredible. And I think the time before that we really got to spend quality time together is when you got that plaque that's right behind you. We were at that event together, and that was remarkable. That was the Oh, look at you.
I was holding your, at the time, bestseller before the new one.
That was, yeah. And it was, we were in Georgia. It was the International Federation of Learning Development. And
Yes.
we were part of this group of incredible people who were named top 20 mentors in the world. And there was no one I would want to spend that weekend with than you and the people who were there with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. What a great memory. And boy, did you steal my thunder. There you go. And the great man behind us who was responsible for us being there, Marshall Goldsmith.
That's
And
right.
you were recognized by
Oh my
him
God.
as one of the top mentors on the globe. The plaque literally says that.
I can't believe you just pulled those up.
Yes, yes. Because
Wow.
that was not only was just a fantastic day, because of obviously being recognized was a great opportunity, but learning from him, learning from each other. You gave a speech there, and the other thought leaders were there as a part of it. Chester Elton, Dr. Terry Jackson, so many other people were there with us, and then the people themselves. So I'll
Yeah.
never forget that day.
That
And
was learning on steroids, wasn't it?
it was. And of course, you mentioned the last time, which is another thing I won't forget, the Thinkers 50 in London. Oh my.
Yeah. That
And
that
you
was
are,
something.
I didn't mention one of the Thinkers 50 on the Thinkers 50's list. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It's Thinkers 50 is incredible. It is, I don't get nervous when I give keynotes because to me that's the ultimate way of teaching. But here was a room with hundreds and hundreds of people who I respect the most in the world. These are the top thought leaders in my field. And they were there. They were in the audience. And I needed to do a good job because they were here to learn. And in my mind, these were the best of the best. So if I could teach them one thing, I I would take that as a win. And we got to talk about mentoring. And it was because of that that we have some of the best relationships that we've ever had because we were able to teach each other something and learn from each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for the walk down memory lane and for
Always
highlighting
fun.
these great organizations. Well, is there anything else that I missed about you and your great career that you want to make sure we highlight?
No, we're good. I'm gonna let you take the reins here because who knows what'll pop up.
All right. Well, we talked about your first bestseller, but now this book, the Financial Times, which is a big deal. It's for those who don't know in America, right? That is the book that that is like being on the Wall Street Journal's list. So this is a big deal, and you've got your
Oh,
co-author. So tell us about the book um,
yes.
and how that came about.
Sure. So, look, I've been involved in mentoring for decades. I've mentored hundreds of people, maybe even thousands at this point, from students all the way to faculty members. And I had done research on it. I used to be a dean for mentoring at an Ivy League medical school. So I have been entrenched in this for a very, very long time. And we all know what it is. We all know we're supposed to do it, but nobody really knows how to do it well. We sort of use our own experiences and we either do exactly the same or the exact opposite. And that's a bizarre way to do something that we know works so well because the research on mentoring is crystal clear. Those who are mentored make more money, they outperform, they get promoted more often, they have less burnout. I mean, all the great things. And it helps the mentor because the mentor actually gets promoted more often and finds greater satisfaction in the world, in their work. And it helps an organization because those who are mentored are more loyal to the organization. So it is the greatest retention tool out there. So if we know all these great things about it, why aren't people doing it well? And there are mentoring programs in place. 98% of Fortune 500 companies have mentoring programs. So we sort of know we're supposed to do it, but people don't really know how to do it well. And I don't know if they're uncomfortable with asking or saying, I've already been mentoring for 20 years. So I don't know what else there is to know. Anyway, Andy Lapata is Europe's lead person in creating professional relationships. And at the end of the day, a mentor-mentee relationship is a professional relationship. So it was truly the perfect partnership. And we got together and we said, all right, this is how you do mentoring right. This is what it's like for the mentor. This is what it's like for the mentee. This is how organizations should do it. And we created this blueprint and we offered ideas of how to do it. We showed the research. We offer case studies and scripts and templates and checklists and infographics. Basically, this is the mentoring book that I was always looking for but couldn't find. So I wrote it.
If you can't find it, make it. I love it.
That's it.
Well, tell us before we go further, how do you all define mentoring?
Sure. So mentoring is somebody who has your back and they will help you long term. They have that strategy of how to help you in your career. They're going to open doors for you that you did not even know existed. So unlike coaching, which is more often short term and it's for something more specific, mentoring is more long term and it's more general. Now, we'll talk later about why you need some context. You can't just show up and say, help me with my career. But it really is for that long term.
You can't just show up and say, hey, stranger, help me out.
No. And that's what I tell people. Don't ever ask someone to be your mentor, because if you're asking someone to be your mentor, that just sounds like an obligation. That's very stressful. Eddie, I know you are working around the clock. You've got a family. You don't have remnants of time. But if I went up to you and I said, Eddie, I think I need to start a podcast, a show, like a LinkedIn Live show, because I really think that's going to help me with brand and reputation, whatever. I don't know how to do it. You have a really successful one. Can I sit with you for 20 minutes? You walk me through this. I'll show you what I have. You can tell me what I'm missing and what else I should do. Now, all of a sudden, I gave you context. I told you how long this is going to last. I told you why I'm specifically asking you for help as opposed to somebody else. This gives it context. Now, all of a sudden, I am sure you can find those 15, 20 minutes in your day to help someone because I told you exactly what I need help with. That's very different than, will you help me with my career? Would you help me with my podcast? Well, what part? Right? So you need to be very specific. You need to be contextual and you need to give a time frame. Now, if you really want to do it well, and I'm going to use us as an example, Eddie, you're going to sit with me for 20 minutes. You're going to answer all of my questions. You're going to introduce me to someone from your network who you think I should speak to, who has specific expertise in this one thing I was asking questions about. And then I'm going to go away and I'm either going to do what you advised or not, right? Just because you're my mentor doesn't mean I need to listen or activate on what you said, right? Because I am my own person with my own opinions. But here's where most people fall short. You can do or not what your mentor suggests, but you need to circle back. So you say, Eddie, thank you so much for spending that time with me. I heard what you said. I did number 1, 3, 5, and 6. I did not do 2, 4, and 7. And this is why. I heard what you said. I didn't think it was the right fit for me because, well, that tells you that I heard what you said and I thought about it and I thought what would fit and what wouldn't fit. And I explained why. Now you want to help me again because the next conversation, Eddie, I listened to what you said. I saw an increase in whatever by this %. Thank you so much for your help. I circled back again. Now you see the rewards, the fruits of your labor, right? Now you want to help me again. Oh, Ruth, I heard about this webinar about creating LinkedIn Lives. I really think that you should tune in. Let me introduce you to the host, right? Yes. Because now you see that I'm interested. Now you want to help me more often. See how that works?
That's beautiful. So thank you for clarifying the steps we should take. And when we do take it, what we should be saying when we're interested in having someone mentor us. That's good to know. Now, in organizations, it sounds like the path that is taken is one you might recommend, where sometimes they assign the mentors.
Mm-hmm.
Are there pros and cons?
There are definitely pros and cons. So I am not a fan of assigned mentoring. We actually know that 61% of mentoring relationships happen organically, right? This is where people we're at an event or we just randomly meet people and we connect. At the end of the day, you need to connect with the person who's your mentor. The problem with assigned mentoring is that they're random. They're completely random. And it's based on something that you have in common, but it's different, right? So for example, I'm an executive coach. Eddie, you're an executive coach. Oh, you're both executive coaches. You should be a mentor-mentee pair. But not all executive coaches are the same, as we know. It's as preposterous as saying, Eddie, you wear glasses, Ruth, you wear glasses, therefore you should be matched together. But not everyone who puts on glasses is the same. So that's why it's just random. Not everyone who's from the same state or goes to the same college is the same. But it is a starting point. It gives you one person to start with. Where people fall, where organizations fall short, and this is what we really encourage them to do, is actually two things. One, if it doesn't work, there needs to be an exit ramp of where we can switch, right? Switch to someone else.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, there's benefits in scaling it in a way that you have a mentoring team. So a mentoring team is where there's multiple mentors and multiple mentees together where we can learn from each other. So that's how to make it work. Now, who does benefit when it is assigned? The people who don't often ask for mentors. And this is sometimes societally, we're just, it's indoctrined in us that you don't ask for help, you don't ask for advice. It could be cultural differences. And these are primarily women and underrepresented groups. So this gives that starting point. Okay, you don't traditionally have mentors, but here is someone, we're giving you that starting point. So I think for those groups in particular, it's great if there's an exit ramp, if it doesn't work, where there could be someone else instead.
Yeah, and that's such a great point, because I had the opportunity to be a part of a leadership development program where that was precisely the route that they chose to go down, because they wanted to elevate, in this case, in this industry, specifically women of color. And they had historically had no access to the leadership pipeline in this industry and at a major international firm. And so when they did that, they did make those direct assignments, and they did select those individuals who they felt could best assist them, and who it'd be so beautiful because both parties benefited from this relationship in ways they never could have imagined. So I love that.
That's right.
And
now, go ahead. Scott
Combs has joined us from LinkedIn, and he is saying that that's a great framework to you.
Oh, thank you, Scott. I will say, where a lot of people make the assumption is that if you're a woman, you have to have a woman as your mentor. And I would argue against that. I think they should be a mentor on your mentoring team, but not the only one, for multiple reasons. One, we know what the statistics are. There's just not a lot of people in the C-suite who look like me or who look like you. Absolutely. So if all they're doing is they are mentoring people who look like them, they're spending all their time mentoring. When are they going to do their job? Which means, how are they going to get promoted? How can they be leaders? How can we look up to them as role models? The way to get around that is to have the mentor at scale, part of that mentoring team where they mentor multiple people at once. But there's also something that's not good for the mentee. If all my mentors look like me and have my background, I am just in my echo chamber. Yes. I'm going to be hearing the same things I'm always hearing. And if that's the case, when am I going to hear a different perspective? We need to hear different perspectives, but if that's not my lived experience, how am I going to hear it? And how, if everyone around me has the same lived experiences that I do, then I'm not going to hear anything new under the sun.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Right. So I'm actually doing myself a disservice if all my mentors look like me. I'm not saying no one should look like me. I'm just saying they shouldn't all look like me. And I 100% advocate for multiple mentors.
Yes. And that is something that I love as well. In that scenario that I'm citing, they were mostly men, mostly white, mentoring Black women. And that was just, like you said, such a beautiful thing. And they gained a different insight perspective that they would not have had. And
Yes.
certainly those women did. You also make the point that the mentor should not be someone in that direct management line in
That's
your
right.
book.
That's right.
What makes that important?
So there's a few reasons. One is, and this is my co-author, Andy Lapata, we collaborated with Dr. Chevy Cook, who's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And we wrote a piece together in the Financial Times about why mentorship is more important than leadership. And we use the military as the perfect example. Your leader, if you're in the military, every 2 years you have a different post. So if that's your mentor, they're gone in 2 years and you're stuck without anyone. Right. But if your mentor is outside that direct line, then you've opened up the whole world. Right. And talk about different perspectives again, et cetera. The other issue is, and we're not saying that they shouldn't be your mentor, we're saying they shouldn't be your only mentor. If your boss is your mentor and they do such a good job that you then leave, they now have a gap to fill. But the work still needs to get done. And very often the boss will now have to do the work to fill in for the gap that you left them with. So in order for you not to leave, they may actually put up barriers and silently become a tormentor instead of a mentor.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, that's true. Yes. A tormentor instead of a mentor. That is so true.
That's right. And there's so many ways that they could do that, but you don't want to fall into that. So you want to get yourself a team of mentors and not only your boss.
I've come in as an executive coach and I've seen those scenarios. I didn't say it as eloquently as you just did. I'm going to use that phrase. But
I could give you articles to back that up.
It is sad. Yes, if she's a doctor for a reason. She's one of the most scholarly people I know. She has a scholarly reference for everything. So I know you can give me something.
That's right. And that's why Andy Lapata and we partnered. And every time he made a statement, I'm like, where's the evidence for this? Where's the evidence? We need to back it up with evidence. We cannot have anecdotal experiences and hand waving as a way to describe best practices. We need to show that the research was done and what the research looks like. So the book is heavily referenced, but it's written for lay people, not for academics.
I love that. Excellent. Because you get a lot of pushback otherwise. Now, someone has joined us from LinkedIn, and it's not always passed to me the ID, but they said they agree with what you said, and then they have to start their thought over. Isn't cultural reliability a consideration? And I'm enjoying this discussion.
Oh, thank you.
So let's ask you to answer that part. Isn't cultural reliability a consideration?
Related, yes. So I think, look, you definitely want people who can empathize with what you're going through, so that cultural alignment is important. But if everyone on your mentoring team is the same, you're not going to learn anything that's different. And the way I explain this all the time is, if you've ever had surgery, if you go into the operating room, the doctors have a checklist, and they go through that checklist before every surgery. And that is to prevent errors from happening. Well, where did that idea come from? That idea came from airline pilots. Pilots use checklists. So a problem they were having in healthcare was solved by a solution that's been used for decades in aviation. If the doctors were only talking to other doctors, they likely would not have come up with the simple solution of a checklist. But because they opened up their network to aviation, that's how they learned how to fix the problem in one industry by borrowing a solution from another. So you definitely want people who will understand. Look, doctors, for example, they want to be around other doctors. Women want to be around other women. There is this, we understand each other. Sometimes words don't need to be said. We understand the experience. It's a shared experience. But you want to make sure, A, that doesn't turn into a whining session, and B, that you're not in an echo chamber. So I'm not saying
Absolutely.
they shouldn't be
Yeah.
on your mentoring team. They just shouldn't be the only people on your mentoring team.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. And I remember interviewing Charles Fred, former chair of the board of ATD, when he wrote his book Pause. Did he take that brief moment and he talked about that illustration of how they reduced medical error as a result of looking what the pilots did. And I think that might be referencing the power of habit, all the medical errors that were happening, and that they learn from them as well. So that's a really good reminder. I love the fact that you highlighted that. So thank you to Scott for chiming in and tuning in. And then also to this LinkedIn user who we don't know the name, but that question is a really good question, and we appreciate that. And this person is saying, thanks for explaining that to you, Dr. Ruth. We have a gentleman also who's tuned in, who I just met last month, Umar. Thank you. He's based out in Florida. Where was I at? I'm trying to think. Fort Lauderdale.
You were probably giving
Miami.
some keynote in some stadium, knowing you. And by the way, anyone who has not heard Eddie give a talk, the best, the absolute best. I was floored when I heard him.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Well, he says, what a timely discussion. Thanks for the great perspectives. How does this relate to sponsorship?
Ooh,
that's a really good question.
Yes. That's a really good question. So mentorship is great. And the next step is sponsorship. Sponsorship means that somebody is talking about you in a good light, and they're talking about you and creating opportunities in rooms you're not in. So for example, they will nominate you for awards. They will broadcast something that you did positively on their social media. They will nominate you or recommend you for a job, for a promotion. That to me is really the next step. That's what comes after, right? And if you think about the greatest mentors in the world, they measure their success by the success of their mentees. So they want them to succeed. This is where they're opening the doors. They're prepping you for it. They're recommending you for it. And then the best ones take that next step. They've sponsored you for something, for an opportunity, and then they mentor you by teaching you how to do it well. So it's a mentor, sponsor, mentor continuum. And if you want, I have an article to go with that as well.
I'm sure you do. For those who don't know, Dr. Ruth Gotian also writes for Harvard Business Review, Psychology Today, Forbes, and probably 8 other publications I can't remember. So in addition
a bunch
to
of academic ones
who does research, she also produces research as well. So Umar, great question. It is the next level, as Dr. Gotian said. We need mentors, but oh my goodness, sponsorship. That's where it really happens, when someone puts their institutional capital on us and brings us up in those rooms that we are not in. So thank you for asking that question. Very powerful. And our LinkedIn user who's not being identified herself, since LinkedIn didn't do it for us. Jacqueline Burns, postdoctoral training, Columbia University Graduate School of Education, says she's loving this and needs this. You happen to know something about that institution, if I'm not mistaken.
I do. Jacqueline, did you go to Teachers College? That is my alma mater. Yes, I was in the Adult Learning and Leadership program. Very proud graduate. In fact, if you have read my book, The Success Factor, there's a lot of references to Teachers College in there. And then if you read the Financial Times Guide to Mentoring, because everything is supported by research, there's a lot of adult development that's part of mentoring. And we talked about the research of the work of one of my former and favorite professors, Dr. Ellie Drago-Severson, she studied under Bob Keegan. And we talked about the different phases of adult development and how that relates to mentoring. So it's all in there. Oh, Jacqueline said yes.
Dr. Burns is saying yes. Absolutely. So, Dr. Burns, thank you for your support. We appreciate you not only watching and listening, but being a part of the conversation, as we do with Umar. Thank you for joining in. And I mentioned Scott earlier. Dr. Gotian, I could talk to you forever. But
Oh
at
my
this
gosh.
point, we are going to just ask you, what's the most important message, other than buy the book, that you want to send our audience away with today?
Look, I want people to get started on better mentoring right away. So I want to send them to mentoring-guide.com. That's mentoring-guide.com. In there, you could see a bunch of information on the book. You can download a chapter. You can also take an assessment to see the strength of your mentoring relationship. Now, if you want a fun fact, if you are a basketball fan, the guy who wrote the foreword to this book is none other than Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors and of Team USA basketball. And this was such a huge win for us. He truly believes in mentoring, and we were so, so honored that he agreed to write the foreword to the book. Now, also for everyone here who's on LinkedIn, if you just follow me on LinkedIn, I have a bunch of LinkedIn learning courses. And every so often, like I did this morning, I put one out there with access, free access for 24 hours to view the course. So you can just follow me. It's just my name.
That is phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And so, and it's time that you mentioned Steve Kerr too. I'm working on an article based on something that just happened in the news in the sports world, and he's my example.
Oh, well, let me know. I'll forward it to him when it's done.
Oh, yes. Well, on the Keep Leading podcast, I base everything off of the idea that it's continuous. Every leader, it's a continuous action. It's not something that stops and starts.
Yeah.
What quote do you use that helps you to keep leading so that you don't stop?
They said to her, "You cannot withstand the storm." She replied, "I am the storm."
Ooh. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I
Powerful,
like that.
right?
Yes.
Gets me out of many sticky situations.
And you are prodigious in your authorship, your scholarship, and you are a force of nature. Anyone who knows you knows that you will get it done. You will overcome obstacles. So that fits you perfectly.
You know why? Because I have Eddie Turner in my circle. And over the last few months, I was wondering who really has my back. And as I told you in London, I know that you're one of those people who always has my back. So thank you, Eddie.
It's my honor. Thank you for being a guest and for sharing your wisdom with my audience and with the world. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks, Eddie.
And thank you for listening. That concludes this episode of the Keep Leading podcast, everyone, where we've now learned about the power of leading by mentoring. I want to remind everyone that leadership is a continuous action that we must take. It's not about our title. It's not about our position. Leadership is what we do. It's not a garment that we take off and put on. It's continuous, as we said. So leadership is something that should be a part of our core and emanate in all we do. Whatever you're doing, always keep leading.